I wanted to continue with what Peter was talking about and talk a little bit about the crazy world that we are in right now. And this just isn't, COVID-19 and, the fun around that. But we're seeing trends and we're seeing things that are disrupting and breaking the database infrastructure, for many of us. And I want to talk through that. So first, a small disclaimer. I'm going to talk about our 2020 open source survey. I'm going to preview some of the results. All right. Peter had talked a little bit about this. This is an ongoing survey. We're approaching 600 respondents right now. We anticipate more, but 600 is enough to start analyzing the results and seeing where the trends are going. And some of them are very interesting, so we wanted to share that. So you've probably heard all of these words before, and this is my, overhyped word cloud, if you will. And so we've got, the machine learning, the automation, the cloud native, the DevOps, all these different words. And you're going to hear these over and over in the next couple of years, and you're probably going to get sick of them if you're not sick of them already. But I'm going to throw in a few of these here and there, but I'm going to try and minimize the buzzwords here, but realize these will be occurring over and over. So I want to start with probably the biggest trend that I'm concerned about or that I'm seeing, and it's he who controls the application controls the stack. Right, and so hopefully people get the reference with the picture. If you do, put it in Slack. But those who are building it are not the ones managing it, and those who are building it are the ones who are deciding what to put in it. So when we go back a year and we ran a survey of our user base, and we saw that the majority of people choosing database technology is outside the database or the infrastructure side. Management's not choosing it, DBAs aren't choosing it, application architects and developers are choosing it. And we extended that and we looked this year to see what that was. And the increase is moving more towards the architects and the app architects, and the developers are still pretty strong. But the DBAs are more and more inheriting the technology and the databases that that they've gotten from the development stack, right? So someone develops this, and all of a sudden now you have to, support it. And there are going to be consequences, whether they're good or bad. The law of unintended consequences here is, as we start to make these decisions, as we start to shift that balance, and as we start to make those decisions elsewhere, things happen. Now, I like to call this the technology inheritance problem. Okay, so in years past, when I started as a DBA, seems like forever ago, I started in an Oracle shop. And I'm guessing that a lot of you have started in an Oracle or a SQL Server or a DB2 or Sybase even. Maybe there's some Sybase folks out there. And all of your applications use that technology. And as a shop, you worked with the developers to figure out how to get their apps, to work right. Well, now it's the apps teams are going off, they're developing, they're choosing some technologies, they're choosing where to go, how to install, and then they throw it over the wall a lot of times to the DBA team or to the infrastructure team. And so now we have this inheritance problem where you've got a team of people who are not necessarily skilled at managing those technologies, all of a sudden being responsible for new technologies. And, we see this over and over again where people inherit, whether it's, Postgres. Oh, I've never done Postgres. So now I'm an Oracle DBA moving to Postgres, or I'm a MySQL DBA who has to learn Postgres, or, I'm moving to some other technology. And it happens over and over again. Now, this is leading to this multiverse of technologies, because instead of, saying we're going to run on AWS and we're going to consolidate on a single database or a set of databases, you're running on multiple databases. You're running in multiple locations. You're running, multi-skilled people, because you're no longer, an expert Oracle DBA. You're a DBA of everything. And it's leading to these multi-database environments. And when we look at our survey from last year, this is a graphic that we used before, but we saw last year that 92% of companies are already running more than one database. And 89% have more than an open source database. So the multiverse for a database perspective is already there. It already exists. And so now we just need to know how to deal with it and how to deal with the consequences of this type of environment. And we've led to this environment where, we've got more data and more databases than ever before, right? And so, I don't know about you, but we've seen more and more people with lots and lots of databases. When we compare 2019 to where we are today in our 2020 survey, okay, the number of companies that reported having between 100 and 1,000 databases grew by 40%. Okay, think about that. So, I worked for, a company that was owned by GE. Okay, and so GE has lots of databases. I don't think we had 1,000 databases. And so now 1,000 database, 100 to 1,000 database environments are growing up. And it's because every application wants their own database. Every little tiny application microservice gets it. But you think that's startling. Those with reporting over 1,000 databases grew by more than 50%. So the fact of the matter is now we've got environments that have thousands of databases that have to be managed and supported. And that means that the care and feeding of each individual database is very difficult, and you have to look at them as a whole. And some of this is, coming from new technologies like machine learning or AI. I like to consider, a lot of these applications that require quote unquote machine learning as kind of Pac-Man, right? And the data is the pellets. You just want more and more and more, and you just keep on consuming them. And, there's this insatiable need for more data to make better decisions. And I don't see that changing, especially in this new environment that we're in. Now, when we talk about not only like the number of instances, we talk about the sizes of these instances. The database footprints of databases continues to grow. Only 3.5% shrunk, whereas 14% stayed the same. And the vast majority, 80%, saw growth, and almost 39% saw large or massive growth in the size of their environment. And so again, you need to store data for longer. You have more uses for data. You want more data to make better decisions. And so this is causing not only more instances of databases to be run, but more data to be stored. So we're seeing this explosive growth in terms of the amount of stuff that we have to manage. And this also leads to this multi-cloud space now, right? I mentioned that, right? Some of this is on purpose. Some of this is not on purpose, right? These are headlines from just the last month, okay? And so you look at the headlines for the last month, multi-cloud is a growing trend. Why? A couple reasons. One is, shadow IT. I mentioned you're kind of inheriting somebody, decided to run an Azure, another person decided to run an AWS. Now you have to deal with both. That happens. But a lot of this is more purposeful now. And we're seeing more and more people choose this to protect themselves from outages, to protect themselves from issues, performance issues, things like that. And so this growth of the cloud, so now we've got thousands of databases, we've got bigger databases, and now we've got multiple places they're running. I mean, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And when we look at our data last year versus this year, 30% reported that they were running a multi-cloud environment. This year, it's 39%. I mean, it's no wonder when you go back to those headlines, you see that some of the cloud providers are now taking notice, and they're investing in tools to let you run their platform across other, competitors' platforms. And so, and that also exists in the hybrid space as well. So hybrid continues to grow, not as fast as the multi-cloud. So 41% were hybrid in 2019, 2020, 44%. So again, complexity is getting more and more prevalent. So we're seeing more databases, more data, more providers, more locations, more hybrid installations. And so what are the consequences of this? Well, there's some more and some less takeaways, right? So it means for a lot of us who have to work on these systems, we have less expertise in any one of them because we don't have the time to not only enhance our skills, but to enhance the systems that we're supporting and ensure that they're properly managed and set up. We have less time per application. We just have less time available. But that leads to some more problems, right? More mistakes happening, more automation that's cascading problems, more outages, more security issues, more complexity, more cost, right? And more help is needed. We're feeling more and more overwhelmed. And so, you have this problem that's starting to exist, and, there's always an answer for it, and everybody's really good at that. So how does the industry as a whole respond? And I'm going to go to one of the, the best actors in the history of acting to pull a quote, you know, and that is of course Bill Murray. You know, and in Ghostbusters, he said how crazy the times were, and it's human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. And what's interesting is all of these problems that I mentioned, you know, it's sort of a human sacrifice thing that people are looking at to solve it. And that human sacrifice is this debate between, you know, do we need to automate more? How much do we need to automate? How much do we not need people, right? How much do we need to focus on, the automation of things and the AI versus, you know, bringing in experts? And, you know, Peter had mentioned that a lot of, you know, when we talk about databases as service, you know, it's about the automation, and it's about like, oh, it's fully managed, you don't need a DBA anymore. And cloud providers have been very good about, like, you know, publishing things where they say you still need database resources, you still need experts, you still need people who know what they're doing. But I think people ignore it. And so, you know, this is not a new trend though. If you think about it, this goes back to, you know, all business, right? There's always been a drive to do more with less, right? And when you talk about automation, you talk about things that, you know, scale, you know, system scale, people don't thinking it's prevalent in most businesses. And so this goes back to the time of Henry Ford and the assembly line, you know, trying to optimize how you do things so you don't have to have as many hands on, you know, the tools and building the things that you need. And I don't want to say automation is bad, because it's not. It's actually good. Blind automation is bad. But the skills and the tools required to manage this properly change drastically. And automating bad things just equals more bad things. And that is a critical thing to remember, because as we go out and we automate, if we don't have the skill set to know how to manage or automate properly, that's going to bite us, right? That's going to cause us issues. And so we need to understand that we need to ensure that we still have the tools and the skill set to properly address these problems as they occur. Otherwise, we just make more problems. And let's talk about databases as service, because databases as service is probably one of the best inventions that has happened in the last 10 years to databases. Now, it is great because it enables developers to move quicker. It overcomes all kinds of skill gaps, right? So for years, it was really difficult to find MySQL DBAs. It was really difficult to find Postgres DBAs. It was really difficult to find Mongo DBAs. It still is. So building the tools to help people start and enhance their systems sooner rather than later is good. Speeding releases, making it easier for folks. It's great. It is awesome, okay? But it doesn't eliminate that need for understanding and the tools to help make that better, right? We need better, smarter, you know, tools. So this is where I mentioned that false sense of safety, right? What does fully managed mean to you? What does fully managed, you know, mean to, you know, the vast majority of people? Because it means different things, and we have to be careful, because a lot of the fully managed things that we do, even if it isn't like public cloud or private cloud, even if it's the things that we automate ourselves, we have to understand that, you know, there still needs to be some thought process and expertise put into it. So I asked, as part of our open source survey this year, what keeps people up at night, right? And so, you know, when we talk about keeping people up at night, you know, from a you know, technology perspective, these are the 5 top things, okay? Downtime, unforeseen emergencies that just pop up, security issues, bad performance query issues, staffing issues, lack of resources, right? So those are the top 5 things that everyone has responded that keep them up at night. Now, when we look at like a shared responsibility model, and we look at databases as service, we look at other places, you have to realize that like a lot of these are shared responsibilities or you fully own, right? Downtime was the #1 thing. Yes, there is some great tools out there to prevent and eliminate downtime, but you need to know how to deploy them, otherwise they don't work. There's a reason that you see like, you know, outages that happen in, you know, one cloud provider all of a sudden take down applications, even though they might have a whole bunch of HA set up. They just didn't set it up right. Maybe they didn't understand the nuances and where the issues were. Unforeseen emergencies, who knows what those are, but, you know, they come up, right? You never know. It could be application code. It could be, you know, something happened to your data. Who knows? But Anything beyond the infrastructure is the responsibility of us as a group to manage. And when we talk about security, it is totally a shared responsibility. And performance, query tuning, lack of expertise, those are completely on you as the user. And, those are the things that you have to realize, like, hey, as we look at this automation and this great, automated space, what is our responsibility versus what can we outsource to, a provider? Now, it's interesting because we also asked how many of these events did you have any of these happen in the last 12 months? And, we asked, did you have performance problems? Did you have unplanned downtime? Did you have bad code? Did you have overworked staff? Did you have security issues? And when we look, problems happen everywhere, whether you're in the cloud or not, right? So, when we asked, how many people had performance issues, 62% in the cloud said I had performance issues. 54% not in the cloud said I had performance issues. Bad code, guess what? You roll bad code into production, whether you're in the cloud or not. But what's interesting here is I want to point out, look at the overworked staff. Okay, 26% say they're overworked. And when we compare this to cloud instances where you're running non-database as a service and database as a service, look at the difference, right? There's a 10% jump in the overworked staff when you talk database as a service. Why is this? My speculation is when we move to a database as a service, we move those resources to do other things. And when database problems occur, they've got 17 other jobs to work on. And so it becomes very difficult to jump in and fix those performance issues or make sure that, the security is set up correctly, right? And one of the survey respondents responded to our survey. They put in a comment, there is no perfect database server. All of them have weird issues. And that is totally true. And just because you start to outsource components doesn't mean you have to not care about these things. Obviously, if people are still having performance issues, unplanned downtime, overworked staff, security, bad, code rolled into production, if you're still having those in, like a cloud, system and a non-cloud system, you're still having them in production, obviously we haven't fixed the problem. We're still having the things that keep us up at night. And so how do we fix those? That's important. And when you look at, those outages, it's no surprise, right? These are headlines from last month. And outages, right? Whether it's, big cloud providers, application providers, they still happen. This is not new. This happened a year ago. This is my slide from Percona Live a year ago. And when we look at security issues, they still have issues as well. This is a year ago. This is now. Now, I like to always point out this one. GDPR compliant site leaks data and passwords. That one is, kind of, interesting. But, just today, okay, this is a quote from today from CISO magazine, okay, and they talk about unprotected databases have been a severe issue for several organizations with hundreds of millions of confidential data exposed. And they point out an Elastic breach that had over 5 billion records. And why? These are simple things. Most of these outages, most of these breaches are because we didn't set a password. A password, okay, easy things. These are things that, any of us as experts and, database, pride ourselves on our database knowledge should know to set a password. But it doesn't occur to a large majority of those who are now using this technology. And if you look at, this study by Verizon, and this was just released as well, okay, the fastest growing data breach cause is misconfigurations. It's not setting the passwords. It's forgetting to, set encryption. It's doing these common things that occur. And, the report actually goes on to say errors continue to be a significant factor in breaches. They're primarily made up of misconfiguration of cloud databases. This is from Verizon's report where they studied all the database breaches in the last year, right? So this is getting worse, not better. Now, they think it's getting worse because people are now reporting it and they weren't before, but I think it's also because we're storing more and more data. Now, we mentioned, some of the performance issues and some of the other things that are occurring. Now, one of this is, changing how we think about how to scale. Okay, a lot of people say performance tuning keeps them up at night, but how many people choose to, scale their database is via credit card, right? And so when we asked, okay, from a spend perspective, are you spending at plan, below plan, above plan? Overall, whether you're in the cloud or not, about 24% showed that they were above plan. Now, as we move more towards the database as a service side and the cloud side, it gets up to like 33%. So more and more people are spending more than they plan to when they get in here. And this is the one that's more telling for me, right? We asked, how often have you had to upgrade your database instances to something bigger? And, so 11% said 0 time. Almost 20% had to upgrade 10 times or more. Now, every instance upgrade tends to be a 2x price increase. Now, that's a pretty big increase. And most of these can be avoided by fixing those performance problems. And it gets back to us thinking about, like, hey, from a database perspective, do we want to tune? If we don't tune, how do we scale? And if we're not fixing those performance issues, we're going to fix them by paying more. And that's what a lot of people end up doing. So when we talk unexpected costs, okay, here's an interesting number, right? Non-public cloud users had an 8% reported unexpected cost. Public cloud users said 10%. Database as a service, 19% said that their costs were unexpected. Now, when we talk about humans versus sponge, or humans versus, like the computer, humans versus the computer in this automation, and, how much do we want to just, set it and forget it? The answer is not either one of these. It's the combination, right? Database as a service is great, but how do we make it more efficient? How do we make a better database as a service? How do we, fix this so it is no longer just a robot? It's the cyborg, awesome sauce, thing that can combine both our human knowledge and, the machine. How do we get better tools? How do we get better database as a service? And so we need that. We need better automation. We need smarter tools. We need better education, better security, right? Better performance. We need to make us all more efficient and be able to solve these problems that come up. It's very, very important. Now, the other part of, Bill Murray's quote was, cats and dogs living together. And we're one step away from that, right? So we've got the human sacrifice thing down. So, we're close. We're getting better. But there's still some issues we need to overcome. So what do we do about it? So what's next? Where do we go, right? So better tooling and software to start with. That's an important thing, because as these environments get bigger and as they spread out, it's going to be important for us to have tools to help manage those tens of thousands of instances. And so we need to work across those cloud providers. We need that view into the thousands of instances. We need tools that are going to help us keep our data safe, right? And we need database software that scales up and down easily with the demand that we have. And we need our software to still be open, portable, and extensible, right? So this is where, we've started to work on our software, and where our vision for Percona monitoring and management is, right? We want a simplified management system where we can take that complexity and give you the ability to reduce the complexity with it, right? And so there's a lot of, different things that we pull together around performance and security and scalability in PMM. Now, when we talk about security, I have a selfish goal myself, okay? I don't know about you guys, but, my data gets breached quite a bit. And I do not need any more credit monitoring. I don't know. How many people here have gotten free credit monitoring lately? I seem to have a lot. I am actually really good with free credit monitoring until the year 2082. I think my daughter will be good with free credit monitoring with what I've gotten as well. So I do not need or want any more free credit monitoring from these database breaches. I really don't. But the problem is these database breaches continue to happen, right? Over and over again over the last year. My data has been leaked so many times. So I have a solution, all right? So, I'm going to give you the simple solution, and then I'm going to give you some tools to help with this. So the simple solution that I have is I think I can solve more than 50% of the data breaches that exist right now, okay? And I'm going to give you the secret sauce. And what's more, I can do it in one line code, one line, all right? And that one line is this. It is set your password. It is the change password command for MongoDB. Mongo and Elastic are the two most breached databases out there. Most of them breach because nobody set a password. Okay, so if everyone in the world does this, I will not get any more, well, at least 50% of the free credit monitoring that I have would go away, and I would really appreciate that, right? So changing your password is critical to ensuring that you keep your data safe. It's like step one, right? There's all these other steps that have to happen after that, but if you don't even do that, you're worried about the wrong things. You're leaving the front door open while you're in the back, building the fence and wall to keep people out the back. And so you got to fix that first. And so I went to our, product team and our engineering team, and I implored them. I go, please, please help us. Help stop leaking my data, right? So hashtag keep Matt's data safe. So I asked them to do this. And so in Percona Monitoring and Management 2.6, we've included the first version of our security threat tool, all right? So it gives some basic checks for the most common issues, like I didn't set a password, like I'm out of date on my software, right? And we're going to be implementing more checks over the coming months, because here's the thing. These might be easy for a lot of us, but those who are out there who are actually deploying and setting these systems up, it doesn't occur to them. So we need to help protect this environment and protect the data that's out there. Okay. Now, I mentioned that MongoDB is also one of the areas where we're seeing a lot of data breaches. And so we're starting with our first release, first release of our Percona distribution for MongoDB. And so what we've done is we've taken our MongoDB tools, we've taken Percona server for MongoDB, and we've taken other open source components. We bundled them together so they work together and they can be installed easily across multiple environments. And we bake those into this distribution. We also take all the best of the open source components and bundle it into one there. And we're also offering now managed services for MongoDB in case you just want someone else to manage it for you. And this is kind of like the human robot mixed with the Kung Fu grip. We also have distributions for MySQL, Mongo, and Postgres coming up, MySQL coming up. And PXE 8 has come up, and it's the world's highest, most trusted high availability solution for MySQL. If you're not familiar with how we built Percona server for MySQL, we take on all of those features and fixes and bundle it on top of MySQL community to make it truly an enterprise ready system. And so helping you to scale and simplify, we've got PXE 8 that we mentioned. So, and we have Kubernetes operators for that. We have our Postgres distribution version 12. And then we're going to be launching more performance enhancements and security things. We're also announcing today a partnership with Linode, where we're going to be bringing the best of Linode and Percona together to bring a enhanced database as a service. I invited Blair to give a quick introduction. Blair, if you want to come off mute.
All right, great. Matt, can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Oh, fantastic. Well, great. I'm proud to be here at Percona Live Online. As Matt said, I'm Blair Lyon. I'm the Vice President of Marketing here at Linode. Since 2003, Linode has been helping our clients accelerate innovation by making cloud computing simple, affordable, and accessible for all. And now with nearly 1 million worldwide customers and 11 global data centers, Linode is leading a growing category of what we call alternative cloud providers. And key to being a true alternative to the big guys is providing a best-of-breed enterprise solutions, and database as a service is no exception. We are excited to combine forces with Percona to build a better DBaaS. Using enhanced versions of MySQL that includes not only high availability features, but also security and performance enhancements. We essentially combine Percona PMM with a deep integration of PXE, deployed on our new managed Kubernetes offering. Our goal, click button, get high availability, high performance, and scalable DBaaS cluster. Best of all, customers will enjoy the core benefits of Linode, predictable flat rate pricing across all our data centers, award-winning, no-tiered, 100% human support for free, and 50% cost savings over AWS, GCP, and Azure without sacrificing performance. Stay tuned for more on a better DBaaS solution powered by Percona and Linode coming later this year. And thanks, Matt and the Percona team, for having me on. Back to you.
Thanks, Blair. Appreciate it. And so finally, I want to recap with what Peter said. If you haven't filled out our open source management survey, we really appreciate it.